Booman said he made $150,000 to $300,000 a month, charging only $25.
No way.
Now that's what makes me think, oh, you kind of scamming folks. And I'm going based off the numbers you're telling me in the podcast. Payne, I'm always like hesitant to call somebody a scammer.
Actually, no, you're not. Peace, what's going down? You're back on the #1 podcast that is simultaneously recorded remotely from both the West Coast and the Midwest on varying days of the week. The Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. And we talk it because we live it and we live it, so we give it. How are you feeling, Dame? I know you're in California. I don't know if you know what happened in my region within the last 48 hours, but I know you're not experiencing that, thankfully.
I don't, but I'm assuming it has something due to the weather. What's happening in your region?
Oh, yeah.
People?
We got absolutely destroyed. I mean, if you're in the Midwest, you know. But I mean, it was a combination of the most fierce wind and a snow emergency at the same damn time. Like it blew my back garage door open and a bunch of snow got let in, and I woke up. My cats are in the snow. I'm like, what is going on? So it took me hours to just get myself out of the driveway. And then if you're from the Midwest and you have to shovel, you can relate because you're waiting on the city to plow. They don't plow until you finally gotten your driveway together, and then they come and plow and leave a metric ton of snow in your path that you have to now dig out again. And then they do that several times throughout the day, and it's really helpful. So yeah, feel lucky if you live in a region that doesn't get snow emergencies.
Yeah, I probably just wouldn't leave the crib. Like, I mean, I know that some.
Oh, I didn't.
You have to. And it sounds like your cats got a little payback for trying to kill you a couple weeks ago. So.
Oh no, they wanted to be out. They wanted it. They just, they don't know how to ski or snowboard, so it got old fast.
Well, yeah, we're definitely not dealing with that here. It's been nice and sunny in LA, so I guess that's why we pay as much as we pay in taxes and just cost of living. But anyway, let's get into this. Obviously, before we start, we got to share a couple wins. Payne, from the past week, share a win, man.
Oh yeah, Firestarters 3 is out. I finally finished it. It's my biggest, probably my biggest single sample pack ever, but definitely the biggest of the series. So I haven't even dropped it on my platforms yet. If you're a member of the Patreon at 2 of the higher tiers, you get it for free. So members of the Patreon are going to get that for free this week. Patreon.com/DJPayne1. But if you just want to check it out, go to thesamplelab.com. It's exclusively released there for the time being, and then it'll go on my platforms. But yeah, every time I drop I don't know how these producers and sound designers can do that shit like several times a month. I think the most I've done is 2, and one of them has to be collab because it's a lot of work when you're doing the podcast and making beats and doing all this other stuff. So I count that as a win.
Dope. Definitely check that out. On my side, I found a new platform. I'm not going to say the name just yet because I might actually be consulting for them. But it's a new platform for direct to fan sales, interaction, etc. And there's already 1 million in one of these platforms, right? But the benefit of this one is like it's your own site essentially. So you could basically send them to djpayne1.com. You're not sending them to patreon.com/djpayne1. You're not sending them to even. You're not sending them to another platform. Like, you're building everything out on your platform, and it has way more functionality than all of those platforms. Payne, and I know it's tough, like once you've built a community on Patreon. So if you're like happy with the platform, it's really tough to migrate artists over, or your customer, your fans, whoever, from one community to the next. Sometimes you lose people. Sometimes you remind people that they have a subscription. For people that have forgotten, people might subscribe to you and you're still collecting $5 a month, $6 a month, and maybe they would want to cancel if they remember that they had the subscription. So that's a risk if you care about that. But it's a platform that I'm going to share in the coming months. I was actually, every time somebody hits me about this stuff, I'm not that excited to get on a call because I don't think it's going to be anything new. anything different than what's already out there, but this was a surprise. So hopefully I'll probably share it next week. And I know it doesn't really sound like a win. It's not a win for you guys yet. It's potentially a win for me if I'm consulting for the company, because I would like to be on board and share it more widely. So next week I will tell you exactly what the company is, but that was a win for me, both finding the platform and then potentially being a consultant for them. So that's my win. I mean, I know people are like, damn, Dan, you shouldn't even have brought it up if you weren't going to tell us what the name is. But next week, I got you. All right, let's jump into these convos. I wanted to start quickly with the conversation that Ray Daniels recently had with a gentleman by the name of Booman. He had a conversation with him because he was, I guess they had some back and forth like on other podcasts. And Ray wanted him on his podcast so they can discuss kind of like his business, the legitimacy of his business, and just kind of how he moves. Because I guess Booman has a reputation in the industry that isn't positive with everyone. It looked like it was some people in support of Booman in the comments, but there definitely was a lot of people that claimed that Booman either owed them money, wasn't honest about things. I'm always like hesitant to call somebody a scammer.
Yeah. I mean, actually, no, you're not. I've heard you call a lot of people scammers.
Unless I know for sure, because I made a post yesterday on my Instagram. Like, there are some people that there's scammers. There are people that do good business and have great services and good intentions, but there's this bucket in the middle that's closer to scammer than it is to good business, with people that think they have a good service. They think they're doing right by artists. Like, in their mind, they really think that.
Or they're really good at acting like they think that.
Yes, but I'm not in their mind, and that's why I can't call them a scammer unless I know for sure, like, you're really trying to deceive artists.
Oh God! I mean, that's a hell of a conversation, because there's a definition of a scam, and if people are doing that, then they're scammers, regardless of what they think. I think a lot of people just don't get it. I think people walk into specifically the music business thinking, well, this is just a place to grab money as fast as possible, and they just think that's how it's supposed to be. And so whatever happens in the time between them getting into the music industry and them getting out is fair. That's just how, I mean, I run into people all the time. The expectation is, and it's because of the propaganda and the narratives that reach the consumers. We're going to talk about one of them actually today with the Iman Europe video, but people just tell you in the entertainment business, everyone's out to stab you in the back, so you got to stab them first. So they're like, oh, cool, this is just what it is. And it's not true. People don't like getting stabbed in the back. People don't like getting scammed in the music business. And sometimes, not always, unfortunately, but sometimes there are consequences for doing that.
Yeah. So here's an example of what I'm talking about, right? Like these music reviews that everyone's doing. There could be somebody that actually believes that they're giving value, giving their music review. And sometimes it can be valuable depending on who's doing the music review.
Very rarely.
But it would be a scam if you paid for a music review and they didn't even review the music, right? Like, that to me is like, even if it does get reviewed and it doesn't do anything, you still got what you paid for. Now, if they didn't even review the music, that to me is for sure a scam. And in the interview, Booman claimed that he was making $150,000 to $300,000 a month doing music submissions when he first started.
Let me ask you this, Dame, then, because, and I don't know about what Booman was doing, but this was probably during the lockdown era because people were at home. Music reviews went crazy during that period. But your scenario of if someone is doing music reviews and they don't actually review the music, that's a scam very clearly because you didn't get what you paid for. But what if someone's doing music reviews and the music reviews are not helpful? And I've heard that that from so many people who pay for music reviews, where they're like, I paid $100 for a review, and the person just said, oh yeah, keep going, keep moving forward. Or in extreme cases, people have told me, and they say names, and I'm not here to expose anybody, but they'll submit a track for a music review or a beat for a music review, and the person reviewing will just tell them it's trash and cut it off right away and move on to the next. And I think that's the gray area where it's like, I would call that a scam, but there's plausible deniability where the person's like, I gave it a review, I said it was trash, and then I turned it off. And someone paid $50 to $150 for that. And this really happened. If you're in the comment section, if you've experienced this, confirm or deny.
Yes. Somebody says this. I mean, maybe that is the feedback that you need. To me, if somebody hears it and says, well, let me take a step back. No, that's not worth whatever you paid, for sure. But if somebody turns your music on and says it's trash, that is better feedback than somebody listening and just like, oh, it was cool. Like, but here's where I was going with it. On the podcast, Booman said he made $150,000 to $300,000 a month, right? Charging only $25. So I did the math. If he was making $300,000 at $25 a pop, that means he reviewed 12,000 songs in a month. Do you really think that that's possible? To review 12,000?
Yeah, if you're doing a live, actually, let me see.
12,000 songs.
12,000 divided. Let's say you stream 5 days a week. So 20 days a month. 600 not 600 a day. No way.
Yeah, but that's what so now that's what makes me think, oh, you kind of scamming folks, because and I'm going based off the numbers you're telling me in the podcast. So, I'm definitely with stuff like that. He also said something else, because they were talking about a song that had over 100 million streams independently, right? And somebody asked him like what the artist made from that. And his response was, well, he owns his co-pub. So in my mind, like, they didn't ask any further questions after that. This is something I'm probably going to take that interview and chop it up and give my responses or questions that I would have asked, because I would have stopped that interview many times based off some of the things he said and tried to drill down deeper into what this cat is talking about, because
I know you would have.
So much stuff did not make sense. And that was another one of them. He was like, oh, he got his co-pub. So in my mind, this person that's signed to your label only owns half of their publishing, and none of them, they don't get any master royalties or percentage of the masters. Like, so that would have been a huge red flag. I would encourage people to watch this interview and just kind of see what kind of questions you would ask and kind of what's missing. It's entertaining for sure, but I think there's a lot to learn from that conversation, because every city probably has a Booman.
That's a great example, though, of the gray area. Because if you say, hey, this artist owns their music, and what you say is, oh, well, they're actually in a co-pub deal, which means the label owns their masters, and the publishing company that has the co-pub deal with them owns half of their underlying composition. So they maintain their writer's share, which is 25% of their overall 100% IP, right? So they technically still own some of their music, right? So that's what I mean. It's that gray area where it's like, hey, man, you still own the business, and you own 1%, even though you're the one that founded it. You can still say, oh, yeah, you're an owner.
Right. So yeah, I wish there was because there's a cat named Bank that has I think his podcast called the Big Facts Podcast, and he was the one kind of moderating. But he wasn't really. He was hilarious because he would sometimes not moderate. He would just like translate what the other person said. But it's like, I just heard what he said. There's no need for you to translate like what he just said. And at one point he was just kind of eating a bag of chips between the two. He was actually kind of funny. But he just kept translating what Ray would say to Booman or what Booman would say to Ray. And it was like, I don't really need a translation. I heard exactly what he just said. So anyway, check out the podcast. I'll probably cut some clips from it and respond to it myself. Maybe put it on YouTube. Maybe just put it on Instagram. But yeah, maybe I'll cut up some clips today. But let's get into one of your topics, Payne, and I'll revisit this conversation at a later date.
The biggest AI newsletter, purportedly, this is what they claim, is called the Rundown AI, and they posted this story, and it's a wild ass story. The person they're talking about actually reached out to me. The Rundown AI said someone used Suno to generate a Japanese metal band called Neon Oni fake member bios, AI generated music videos. It said based in Tokyo on Spotify, and they built up to 800,000 listeners. However, and they were selling merch apparently. Yeah, my bad, 80,000 monthly listeners. Then somebody exposed them for creating AI generated music and videos and traced the creator's account to Europe, so they weren't in fact in Japan. What are we calling that? So we got into that whole conversation of scam versus not scam. If you create fake member bios for people that don't exist, and you market the band as human, and you market the band as ethnically, nationally, culturally one thing when it's really not that, what is that?
I don't know. I mean, I think I personally think it's unethical, but somebody's gonna say, hey, like it's just a character. Like I can come up with a story. Like I'm allowed to write a book about a character of African descent and lives in wherever. Like I can make up this story. I think the issue here in music is the people receiving it. People think that it's an actual person. Like if I write a story, it's a story.
Right.
On Spotify, the assumption is, well, I think currently the assumption is all these artists are real artists. I don't know. I think there just needs to be a label on if you're gonna create AI artists, AI music, like everything just needs to be labeled as such, so that people know that they're not actually listening to a real person. And some people are not gonna care, but I think a label at least needs to be there.
Well, there are two plot twists. So after getting exposed, according to the rundown, the AI prompter, they're calling them the creator, which kind of makes them sound like a deity. They say the creator's response: recruit 7 real musicians from actual Tokyo bands to perform the AI generated songs live. They've now played several live shows and have more on the books. From an interview with the band's creator, in an age where AI is taking everyone's jobs, this has actually created jobs. So the rundown AI is very clearly in favor of AI, unequivocally, it seems. There's a lot to unpack. So the one plot twist is that, I guess, getting exposed made them hire human band members. And my whole thing was, well, they never would have done that if they hadn't gotten caught using AI and people hadn't felt betrayed by the way it was presented as being human to begin with. They had to cover their ass there. That wasn't a noble thing. And so the rundown, they're pro AI, and pro AI people will bend and twist logic and humiliate themselves with the most asinine arguments and reasoning just to justify the existence of AI and the problems with AI. So they're whitewashing the hell out of this story if that's the case, calling it a job creation miracle when really it's someone covering their ass. And at the time, if the band had over 80,000 monthly listeners, well, it's lost a few thousand now. So this didn't actually help it necessarily, even though monthly listeners aren't always the most reliable metric. Now, the other plot twist, Dame, is that the band reached out to me and said, none of that's true. Like, that's not how it happened. So, again, it's
So
just...
so the band that So it did. The true part is it did start out as AI.
I
The
think,
false
I don't know.
the,
I,
the what is the false part, that the band didn't really get gigs based, like the band that stepped in to play the AI music, they didn't get actual gigs.
they said, hey man, that's actually not what happened, but I can understand your viewpoint. I posted songs online for fun. It gained crazy traction. Fans loved it and begged for more. So I thought at that point I could make it real. So I did. So I guess they didn't get exposed for being AI. They just decided to do it to scale up the project. Which, again, whatever. It's gray area. I'm not going to sit here and beat a dead horse. People know where I stand on this stuff. I think it's deceptive if that part is true, that the person pretended they were humans and pretended they were from Tokyo and pretended that they had these identities and stories behind them. But my problem is more with the way the people that benefit from AI, like this company, the rundown, the way this stuff is being presented to the public and being whitewashed. And they're saying, oh, this is a great thing. This is amazing. There are people who are making CSAM. That's a word, an acronym I can't say. A lot of people are, the whole thing with Israel's prime minister and the AI thing, like there's so much awful application for AI right now. And they're marketing it as this noble thing where, yeah, you can look, forget the fact that Suno is still being sued. Forget the fact that they're stealing people's music and intellectual property and then selling access back to them. Forget all that. Look at this one story where this AI band actually hired real musicians. Isn't that great? This isn't actually replacing humans at all. And they can't even get their story straight because 1 second it's, oh, look at these artists, they're about to get replaced, adapt or die, and then it's, oh no, actually we're not replacing you. So it's a lot of confusion. It's a lot of shitty propaganda that just does its purpose is just to whitewash the awful things, awful implications of AI. And it's funny that they're using this band as a case study when, one, I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but 78,000 monthly listeners isn't newsworthy at all. And in addition to that, if it's not real, according to the so-called creator, then it's just more fake shit coming from the AI propagandists, which I've come to expect. So it's just on a loop.
Yeah, to me, the only interesting thing that's different coming from this story is, maybe some A&Rs get some ideas on how they could potentially use AI, like testing some of their thoughts and opinions on the sound and direction of where an artist should take it. Maybe you can test it before an artist actually even tries it, to prove to an artist you're working with, like, hey, this is actually the sound that works or the direction that works, because you can create it yourself and maybe test it. But I just think that if you're gonna use AI music, create AI characters, like, it should just be labeled, so that people know exactly. Because there's a lot of people that think they're supporting
Yeah.
artists that have been struggling for a long time, that have built up the skill set to make music themselves without the use of AI, and come to find out they're supporting somebody that just typed in a few prompts and created some music on Suno. That should be the first kind of fix until all the legal stuff gets sorted out. It should be a very first necessary step. Just label.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at Zanaya Monet, Rusty Dawn, Timberland, all of them. Not that Timberland's AI, but his whole AI artist / record label. All of these folks came right out from the gate and said, this is AI. They didn't just make up bios and stories for non-existent humans. They didn't. There's some weird cultural appropriation stuff wrapped up in all that. But Zanaya Monet was always AI, and she didn't hide that. And she's not at 1 million monthly listeners anymore. But she didn't drop the way, for example, Velvet Sundown did. Remember that Velvet Sundown was like the original Catfish AI band, where they presented as human, and then once people found out, there was some controversy, and they got some good press. But now they're at 140,000 monthly listeners. They were at 1 million, so they've dropped quite a bit. And I think people just don't like that shit. They don't like being deceived. Fans don't like being deceived. This might change over time. People might just expect that everyone is AI, all music is AI, all photography, all art. You're kind of seeing that happen now. But I think that's the future that AI bros want, because they love chaos and they resent art. But a lot of the artists that claim to be true musicians and true lovers of the art, if that's the future they want, then it's kind of like, what's even the point now of making human art if everyone just thinks it's going to be AI anyway? But then also on the flip side of that, currently the market is saying, we don't like that shit. We don't like being deceived. So at very least, just be upfront about it. I saw somebody, I don't know if it was a tweet to me or a comment on one of my videos, where they said, we're going to start a class action lawsuit on behalf of AI artists because we are being discriminated against by companies. So I guess AI bros are going to become a protected class, like like trans people, like ethnic minorities.
That's all bad. Let's move on from the AI. I know the whole episode last week was AI. Let's see what a real artist has to say. She has something on her mind. Iman Europe, a dope artist, I think from LA. I think she's from LA. I might be wrong about that, but this is.
I mean, she's not dressed like she's from the Midwest in this video. I'll tell you that much.
People hear my music, and the first question they always ask is, why are you not bigger? You're a star. Why are you not bigger? Because I don't want it enough. That's it. I just don't want it enough. I don't want it enough to have to change the way that you got to change. I don't want it enough to slime the next person to get it. I don't want it enough to be in constant competition with the next person. I don't want it enough to be in constant competition with myself. I don't want it enough to have to sacrifice the things you gotta sacrifice. I've seen it. I don't want it enough to have to go back on my own values and my own morals to go with the program. I've seen it. I don't want it enough to be constantly paranoid. I'm private enough. I like my little life. I like being able to do what I could do. I like touching who I could touch. I'll never stop making music. That part ain't never gonna die.
You can cut. I don't know. Actually, know how long.
Well, no, hold on. No, let me.
To be seen.
This part.
I healed that. If God decides to magnify me, it is what it is.
I think that's important, because that's what resonated with a lot of people. The healed part and the God part.
Like I would have been okay with this video if she would have stopped at, I don't want it enough. Right. But when she further explains like what that means, because there still is this perception amongst artists that in order to advance, you have to sell your soul and you have to like do evil things to the next. We have to, I think she said, slime the next person. Like there are people that are doing very well in this music space in a very healthy fashion. They didn't have to sell their soul. They didn't have to sacrifice a monkey. They didn't have to do anything weird in order to progress. Like
they're sacrificing monkeys now?
I don't know. I have no idea. But they're still in, because that's what artists convince themselves of. And that's why they're not in a different place, because I haven't even heard the word Illuminati in some time. And I'm glad that is the case. But you know, that was and it's probably a very real thing still, that people people believe that you have to join some evil entity in order to progress in entertainment. Right. And It's just not the case. So if you say like, hey, I'm not further along than where I currently am because I don't want it enough. Completely fair. That's completely fair. But then the additional step of like why I don't want it enough is because you have to do all these weirdo things in order to, like, that's just not the case. You just haven't found a lane, or you haven't been consistent. There could be a lot of reasons why she isn't further, and I don't even know where she currently is. And again, I like to take these moments and extract them away from her and just make a broader point. Um, but what was your? Because I didn't even listen to the end, Payne. So what was the piece at the end that resonated with you or that you wanted to talk about?
Well, everyone, I think when you bring God up, people's ears open and they're like, "Oh yeah, okay, you're right." And I don't even want to go there. I think it was an additional cover for what she was doing, and it was effective, which is creating this vague specter of some evil force in the music business that she refuses to appease, and therefore, if she's not famous, if she never becomes more successful, if she never scales up, it's because she didn't appeal to evil. And if she does, then it was just random by choice. God chose her. So within that framing that she created, there's no accountability. And that's
Well,
what a lot of artists exist in. They exist in this space between failure and success with zero accountability for either. Because if you succeed, if I see an artist succeed, I'm like, because I've been doing this for 20 plus years, my first instinct is to think, wow, they must have really worked hard. Or if they fail, I'm like, okay, I want to see what they didn't do, because given my experience, I see artists fail all the time because they just don't try very hard. They don't focus. They don't plan. But let the artist tell it. It's because there are forces beyond their control that lead them to one outcome or another. And just looking at, number one, her music is great. So it's not a failure on her part creatively. And I can obviously understand why her fans say, hey, why aren't you bigger? Because they're looking at metrics like monthly listeners, and she's at 20 some odd thousand. So on the low end. Same with her YouTube views. So people can look at those numbers and say, oh yeah, why isn't she bigger? She's probably sick of hearing that shit. But I don't know what her revenue model is. So if I'm just browsing her socials. She has a Substack, she has a YouTube, she has a Patreon. She's selling albums, physical albums. She's selling merch. She must be on tour at some point because she's selling a limited edition tour kit. She has a digital CD for sale, so direct to fan. She also has a grant proposal template kit. She's on TikTok. She's done On the Radar. She's posting stuff to social media that's gaining traction. So there's a lot that she's doing. Maybe she's doing too much. Maybe she's not scaling up. Maybe she's not consistent. I have no idea. But it's just frustrating to hear especially talented artists speak the way she's speaking, where she's doing all this stuff, but when she talks about her career, she's not really. It's just so vague. I don't want to slime somebody out. What does that mean? I've seen it. What have you seen? What did she say? I don't want to get with the program. What's the program? Is that the Illuminati? Is that what, is that worshiping Satan or monkeys or whatever you have in mind, Dame?
It's always the random they, and she might have seen some stuff, and there might have been people that she's seen that did run into somebody that said you have to do X in order to do this, right? And full transparency, like I've never worked with Beyonce or Cardi B or like some of these superstars, so there could be things that they've for sure have had to make sacrifices, not monkeys, but just like personal sacrifices of like things that they couldn't do. Because even when I was speaking with Queen Herbie, they were Carmen at the time, like it's for people that don't know, Carmen was a duo, a man and a woman. They were together. I think they were engaged at the time, and then they wanted to get married, and the label was telling them like, "Hey, don't don't let people know that you guys are engaged or getting married," because they wanted to present her as like still available, so that'd be more, I guess, more appealing to men. So those conversations did happen, but now they're married. They're not a duo essentially anymore. He still produces for her, but she's a solo artist, and she's doing really well. Close to I think 1 million monthly listeners. Like, so I don't know what like the superstars had to do, but there's a lot of levels between where Iman currently is and Beyonce, and I can tell you that you can become a millionaire like without getting to Beyonce status.
Look, I can talk at length about that because we see a lot of what's going on with certain political agendas, etc., that are more consistent with the power brokers, not just in the music business, but in the world. And it's, I always sound paranoid when I talk about that, but I think you know what I'm talking about. There's a real, you saw it at the Oscars. There's a real backlash if you're in the entertainment industry, if you speak about certain topics. And so absolutely, there's a Tony Award winning actress out here that was big on Broadway. I mean, you win a Tony, you're big. And I ran into her the other day, and I was checking her social media, and she was talking about how one of the big Broadway, she turned down a huge Broadway role because of integrity. And I think, it didn't have to do with some nebulous program or some evil they. It was pretty clear that she was talking about some type of socio-political disagreement and possibly the way that the actors and actresses were being treated and paid. And that's why she turned it down. So stuff like that happens. I think there are a lot of sacrifices that you have to make just to work at a certain level. Most of it's just personal time, relationships, sanity. So I don't think that part's good. But then there's also this kind of vague conversation about morals, and morals are personal. So who knows what she meant when she says sacrificing morals. My morals might be that I'm going to say some horrible shit. I don't like Asian people. I don't like gay people. And then I get that's not how I feel, for the record. I love Asian people and gay people, whatever. I'm using an example, and I'm creating a horrible scenario of a bigot, right? So say I'm a bigot and someone offers me a publishing deal, but my A&R happens to be a gay Asian woman. I turn that down and say, oh my God, my morals wouldn't like get the fuck out of here. But if somebody, come on, dude, chill. If somebody offers me that same deal and it turns out that the A&R is either at the label or the publishing company, whatever, is like a misogynist, and I'm a female artist, and they're like, you really have to cut all that women empowerment shit and talk about sucking dick or whatever, just become something that you're not, then absolutely, yeah. But I think what's super important with these conversations, or what I think is important, what I would like to see more of from the artists that expose the music industry and talk about their lack of success because their morality, their morals, their moral compass won't allow them to work at a certain level in the business. I just would like to hear specifics, maybe not saying names, but saying, hey, I was in this situation where there was a racist CEO that I didn't want to deal with. Or, hey, there was I don't know. Again, this isn't about Iman Europe. I have no idea. She's a great musician. It's vague, so I'm filling in the blank, and that's kind of the dangerous part. But maybe, you just didn't like the way the person dressed, or you didn't like I don't know. There are so many things that you can claim are a moral dilemma when the average person would disagree. But if you make it so vague, we never have any idea of what you're talking about. You know, you could say, I walked into that. You know, you see on social media all the time where someone tells a story and then you get the other side and you're like, no, I believe the person at first, but now I see something's weird. So if it was like I joined, like if we decided to recruit a third member for this podcast and they're like, I had to leave the podcast. They make a public statement. I had to leave the podcast for moral reasons. I can't make that sacrifice. And that sacrifice was waking up at 9 a.m. And the moral reasons were because, you know, they were Buddhists and we aren't. But you don't know unless they tell. So I just want more specificity. I know that can maybe put people at risk, or maybe it's just a facade, but it's hard to take these conversations with anything but a grain of salt when there's no specificity.
Yeah. So Payne, I dropped out, obviously. I'm assuming so you kept it rocking. So awesome.
Oh yeah, I didn't even take a breath.
Awesome. So yeah, long story short, you shouldn't have to do weird things to get, there's so many examples of independent artists that are doing things on their terms, how they want to do it, and have millions and millions of streams, millions of fans. Like, I can give you countless examples. Like, don't use this as an excuse. If you're going to say like, hey, I just don't want it enough, cool. Leave it at that.
And that's what it is.
Yeah. So, all right, Payne, let's get into your next topic.
Well, hold on. I'll give a specific example since I'm talking my shit. There was a woman who is incredibly successful as a independent artist. I mean, big. If I said her name, the only reason I'm not saying her name is just because why? You know, she's not here. But she was working. I was working with her pretty extensively. I don't anymore, unfortunately. We're still cool. I just whatever. But I introduced her to someone that was in the music industry, and at the time she wanted to get signed, and now she sees that that's not what she wants to do, and she's doing way better. She did get signed at one point, and it was a disaster for her. But the person that we were, and I was embarrassed. He said, hey, you need to be more feminine. You need to do that. And this was before she was out as a lesbian. He was like, be more feminine. And so she initially tried and was making, you know, kind of like heterosexual music. And the whole time I'm like, I disagree with this. I think she needs to lean in to who she is. And she did it. And unfortunately, I didn't say anything. Or I did, but it was like, it wasn't, I wasn't as loud as the other voices in the conversation. And she succeeded by being herself, unapologetically, and really leaning into it. So in that instance, that's the kind of scenario that I see where an artist is being pushed in one direction and it's not right. And so that can either discourage them, and I'm glad it didn't discourage her, because then we wouldn't have her music and she would be living a very different life. So yeah, that stuff happens. I've seen that happen, but usually it's not. I don't know. When we had our deal with Capitol, they were pushing us in a musical direction that didn't make any sense. So that deal went to nothing because it was just weird.
There's probably more examples of that these days, of people coming back to who they genuinely, authentically are. I think Snow the Product is another example. You know, when she was signed to, I forget where she was signed, but they were encouraging her to kind of stray away from, you know, rapping in Spanish and her Latino heritage. And then as soon as she gets off the label, she jumps both feet into that space, and now she's crushing it. You know,
yeah, and that's a great example.
Like, so if anything, there's a lot of examples now of doing the exact opposite, right? Of doing what you want to do, being authentically you, and that working. So yeah, let's get to another topic. Let's get one more topic before we get up out of here.
All right, let me Let me grab my topic. So this is, we might be able to squeeze into. We have 15 minutes left. This is a producer by the name of Noah Mejia. Since the theme is Latino artist. Oh, I'm sorry, platinum producer. I gotta say that. Platinum producer Noah Mejia exposes why being cool is lame in the music industry.
I did this is because, look, people in the music industry would rather look cool, aesthetic, and broke than to put themselves out there more, to do more shit, to get on here, because people are scared of burning ties, of burning connections. Bro, fuck that. At the end of the day, you guys ever notice this? I feel like people that making the most money, and people always look at them as corny, right? The cool people, the quote unquote aesthetic, the edgy, artsy motherfuckers, bro, they're gonna always be the ones hating on the people making way more money than them.
Initial reactions, Dame?
I was like waiting for an example. Like, I don't, because I don't really know exactly. I mean, I heard what he said. I was kind of thrown off because he was looking to the side. In my mind, I was like, what is he looking at? Like, is he reading off a script? Like, I was kind of distracted by the way he was talking, but I was waiting for an example of, like, I mean, because I feel like there's cool cats that make a lot of money and there's nerds that make a lot of money. Like, I don't know if it's one-sided or not. I don't think, who's popping right now. Like, I don't think Kendrick is a nerd. I think
who's a nerd?
Like,
who's a big nerd that's super popular? Pink Panther is.
I'm not that familiar with her music. I think.
Come on.
But here's the thing: like, in my world, or how I look at things, is like, cool people are authentically them, right? So if you're somebody that is into what somebody would consider as like traditionally nerdy, like if you're into anime or into, what else do nerds? If you like to read, whatever, like, I think you're cool if you are you. Like, and you can like whatever you want. Like, that's cool and I think that's cool in a lot of people's books. You don't have to be like the person with the shades in the VIP section, like whatever. Like, that can be cool too if that's that person, But I think we've expanded like what cool is. So I was waiting for I needed some examples from this cat, and I need him to look in the camera the whole time. Like,
well, it's a clip.
I want to know what he was looking at.
He was looking at a cool person.
He was distracted. I don't know. So yeah, I don't. What was your response to that video? What made you want to talk about it? Do you have an opinion?
Well, I think it ties into what we were just saying, where there are so many artists that are leaning into who they are in spite of people telling them that that's not going to work. Like Snow the Product. It's not going to work if you do all that, Chicana shit. And next thing you know, and these labels don't know what they're talking about, but a lot of people would say, no, you got to whitewash yourself a little. And she did the opposite, and she's winning off that. And who would have guessed, if you're not connected to the Mexican American Chicano community, who would have guessed that would work so well? I'm like, duh, of course it would work. And then Peso Pluma comes out and just explodes, and there are all these artists. So I'm like, of course, you work with the people here domestically in the diaspora. Yeah, you're going to do well. But at the time that wasn't cool because there weren't mainstream women who were rapping in Spanglish. So I think that ties into specifically producers. I mean, just artists in general. A lot of artists, and we've talked about this, Dame, they don't want to get in front of a camera. They don't want to make content. They want to project a certain image to the public to insulate themselves. They don't want to be vulnerable. And the funny thing is, at one point that worked. At one point, especially in hip hop, you had to be a certain way. You had to have a certain image. and if you didn't, it was weird. Like Skilo, that was kind of weird. And unfortunately, he had that one song and he got pigeonholed as this kind of goofy, corny artist. And the rest of his music, which was good, didn't take off. Nowadays, I think that would be a different story. That guy that you said you and Big John met at the Comic-Con or something, or like it was like the black version of Comic-Con. What am I talking about, Dame? The guy that did that free stuff, huh?
You talking about what? Continue. What were you saying?
Yeah, the guy that he was rapping about Pokemon cards, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And you were like, yeah, we know him, we met him.
I don't remember, but it was probably.
Well, there was a producer. Yeah, he was at the producer went around with, he had like a full, I forget everyone's name. This is embarrassing. The producer, you know who I'm talking about though, the producer that has the full setup strapped to his chest and he walks around and live streams and makes
Ari.
beats. Yeah, Ari at home.
Yeah.
And this guy rapped about Pokemon cards, and obviously went viral because there was an amazing piece of content. But obviously there were people who loved him, and then there were people who were saying, "Oh, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life." And I don't like Pokemon cards. I don't know how to play them or anything like that. I don't own any, but I can still appreciate that this person's being themselves. And a lot of people don't like that shit when someone comes out as weird. And producers are the same way. They don't want to suffer the backlash for being themselves. I don't blame them. But if that's what you want to do, all that fake shit isn't going to work, because all that, being inauthentic isn't going to work. Hiding from the camera is not going to work. To pivot though, I think not every producer needs to be a content creator. I know we encourage producers to make content, get in front of a camera, artists too, just get in front of a camera. But if you're not a producer that aspires to build a social media brand or sell products, beats, kits, packs online, if you don't want to grow a community, and all you want to do is just make music in person with artists and do that the traditional way, because traditionally most producers were in the shadows and they were still successful. I think that's fine. You're going to have to make amazing music, and you're going to have to do a really amazing job at doing it the traditional way. Because I personally think that, maybe I shouldn't say this, I feel like becoming a content creator as a producer was one of the worst decisions I ever made. Like, I'm not going to stop, but it was a bad decision. Because content creators are way too vulnerable to scrutiny, to misunderstandings, and then we have the algorithm to contend with. So to call back to Iman Europe, her talking about all the competition, fighting to stay relevant, that shit sucks. And then you make a piece of content that's so successful that you're seeing 50% of the people love you and 50% of the people hate you. It messes with you, or it can. But yeah, I think the producers that want to be out there, like Noah Mejia, for example, because he's always streaming and he's now doing interviews with big rappers. You can't be afraid of seeming corny, because people will call some shit corny. I personally think it's good to seem corny, because I think every modern day successful producer.
I mean, I think it's good to see. I think it's good to be whoever the hell. If you're a corny person, then yes, like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's to be who you are. But you said that you regret getting into content. That's not what
I'm not saying I regret it. I think it was one of the worst career decisions that I've made.
Why?
Because it takes so much goddamn time, and then once you get in the mode of making content, it's like a drug. You just have to keep it up. You have to keep going, and you're fighting with algorithms, and you're forcing yourself to make it.
You don't think that has raised your profile, helped like beat placements and beat sales on BeatStars? Like, hasn't that helped you? And you also have the option to stop today. Like, it's not like you have to keep going.
I think that's what people get trapped in. Because sometimes I'm like, man, I just want to make music, but because I built a brand in a more modern way, especially at the time, like in the 2000s, producers weren't public facing as much on social media. So I'm doing that, and then that becomes part of my brand identity. So right now, yeah, I could stop, but I'd be cutting off a huge portion of my brand identity. And then,
and obviously there's
what do
some
you do?
value to like
Yeah, no, there's value to it.
you wouldn't be concerned if there wasn't value to that, like that eventually led to dollars contributed to your business. So it has.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think again, going back to the video, I would have liked to see some examples of what he's talking about, so I could better understand like what he defines as cool versus not cool. So yeah, I don't know.
I think it's probably because he gets called corny a lot. Because I think any producer that puts themselves out there that often and isn't the stereotypical high school yearbooks most likely to succeed nominee, they're going to get some type of backlash just by people. And, you know, even it's the internet. The internet's a real place, but it's not a real place. Because my point is, when I said I think it's fine, I think it's a good thing if people are calling you corny, it's because everyone's not supposed to like you. If people all like you, then someone's lying and you're not. I don't know. I feel like brands should always rub the right people the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like if you are who you are, you're not going to be for everybody. But you find the right people, great. And the wrong people are going to be upset, and they're going to vocalize how upset they are at you being your authentic self. And that's also a good thing. I have people hate watching my videos all the time. I mean, there are people who have left hundreds, I'm not even exaggerating, hundreds of comments on my videos about how much they hate me. And it's like, you're watching my videos and you're boosting my engagement. So that's just part of the overall engagement model. Is just how that stuff works. So it ends up being helpful. It's not always cool. It's not always fun to deal with, but that's just the reality.
Yeah. I don't even know who this cat was, but you know, apparently
he's platinum producer.
Platinum. I mean, if he's doing his thing,
no,
awesome.
I'm here.
There are a lot of creators that let people, the comments get to them, and they claim that they don't, and it's hard not to, right? Like it's rare to find someone where the comments really don't get to them. I've definitely seen comments that have bothered me. I've gone back and forth with some people in the comments. Like, it's rare for comments like not to. It seems like comments are really getting to this cat. But I don't think I've ever made content like specifically addressing something, like going back. Like, I'm not going to do that. But I'm also human, and some of the comments, like, and some of the comments are educational. It's like, I didn't even know that what I said could be received in that way. So I got to go back and see what I said, how I said it, because this person just said that I was angry in the comments, and that's definitely not how I was feeling when I was delivering the message. So why?
That's my life.
So why did they receive it that way? So I think comments are more educational to me, and that could just be just that one person. It couldn't have been. Maybe it's not the overwhelming. It's not how most people were receiving it, but I learned from the comments too. But it seems like for this cat, it's really getting to him that people are calling him corny. So now he's got to lash out like a DJ Academics. I know this stuff gets to him too, and he'll lash out and start going at different people, attacking different people.
Wait, but you're doing what they do to us about imposing their opinions onto him.
What do you mean?
Like when people say, "Oh, Dame was angry," and you're like, "No, I wasn't." We don't know if he's lashing out at people.
But I feel like there's more evidence based on his video versus, I mean, I don't, I guess I would have to go back and see which video I was supposedly angry in, but, you know, he's basically saying that cool people don't make no bread no more. And there's a lot of cool people that make a lot of money. I don't know what he's talking about. Like,
No, I think he's saying people who try to be cool end up missing out on opportunities because they try to curate their personalities in an inauthentic way, and therefore they create a lot less, and they're too cautious and they're too guarded. And I understand, like, people get in front of a camera, like, I got to talk a certain way, I got to look a certain way, I have to to engage in a conversation that's not going to reveal who I really am. And so that's way more work than just.
Let's have this cat on. You know him? Let's have him on. And
I've been trying, man.
Is he too cool for
I'll
us?
DM
Like,
him. I think he's too cool for us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if that's
No, we follow each other. I've just not interacted. I think he's just probably doing a lot of content right now.
So instead of assuming what he was talking about, I thought, you know, there was enough information in that video to understand. I don't know. And then I would also like to ask him what the hell he was looking at, because that seemed to be very distracting.
I'll DM him right now.
So, all right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up this episode.
Hey, we appreciate you tuning in to the corniest music business podcast in YouTube. Everyone who knows Noah Mejia, drop a comment. MEC Army, acting like we have an MEC Army. MEC Army, run over to his Instagram and tell him to get on the MEC. Tell him to DM DJ Payne, and we'll see what works. I actually do have a guest. I'll talk to you about that off camera, Dame. But we appreciate all of you tuning in. Leave a comment, it helps. Share the podcast, it helps. Hype us on YouTube, it helps. And we will catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.